Hi, first grade friends. It's Mrs. Saul, and I'm here with another read aloud for you today. So the book we're going to be reading today is the story about the worst class in the whole school. Oh yes. Oh yes, this was not a good class. This book is called Miss Nelson is Missing. Now, this book was written by Harry Allard and illustrated by James Marshall. You may have seen this book before, maybe you even heard this book before, but we talk about how it's always good to listen to a book again. Sometimes we see things the second time or the third time that we read a book or hear a book that maybe we missed the first time. So while I'm reading today, we're going to be paying attention to some important details that help us better understand the story. And we're also going to be comparing and contrasting some of the characters at the end, okay? So let's get started and let's take a close-up look of the cover of the book. As you can see, it looks like our setting is a classroom. You can see a desk here, which is probably a teacher's desk. You see some students sitting at their own desks. I see a bulletin board and a blackboard and some windows. Most of our classrooms, we still have blackboards, but we don't use them very much anymore. But this book was written quite some time ago, way before smart boards and Promethean boards in our classrooms. So let's get started. Miss Nelson is missing. If you haven't guessed yet, Miss Nelson might be the teacher in the story. Ooh. Let's find out. Miss Nelson is Missing by Harry Allard and illustrated by James Marshall. The kids in room 207 were misbehaving again. Spitballs stuck to the ceiling. Paper planes whizzed through the air. Was that a paper plane? Where did that come from? They were the worst behaved class in the whole school. Oh my goodness. Take a look here. So there's the teacher at her desk. I see some paper planes flying through the air. I see somebody who has the garbage can and is holding it over their head. I see other kids that look like they're making faces. These two kids look like they are having like arm wrestling going on or something. Oh boy. And the author just told me they're the worst behaved class in the whole school. Not good. They're probably not getting many wild card tickets, are they? Now settle down, said Miss Nelson in a sweet voice. But the class would not settle down. They whispered and giggled. They squirmed and made faces. Oh boy. That's not being very respectful of their teacher. They were even rude during story hour. Oh, first graders, we know we don't stand on our head when our teacher's reading us a story, right? Oh my goodness, these are really some naughty kids. And they always refused to do their lessons. Oh my gosh, this would never happen in our school. These students are telling the teacher, nope, I'm not going to do the work that you asked me to do. Ugh. Something will have to be done, said Miss Nelson. Look at her face. And her face here. I can tell from this picture here that she's very upset. Her eyes are her eyebrows are squished like this. See that? She's not happy. Here she's, again, very worried. Something has to be done. I agree, Miss Nelson. This is not how students should behave in school. Uh-oh. The next morning, Miss Nelson did not come to school. Wow, yelled the kids. Now we can really act up. They began to make more spitballs and paper airplanes. Today, let's just be terrible, they said. Not so fast, hissed an unpleasant voice. Who's this? I want to stop and think for a minute here, friends. I know that Miss Nelson just said something must be done on this page, right? We just heard her say that. And now the next day she's not at school. I'm wondering what happened to her. And I know that the title of the book is Miss Nelson is Missing. I wonder if she's gone missing. What do you think happened to Miss Nelson? Take a minute and let's make a prediction. Where do you think Miss Nelson is? She's not at school. I'm going to think too. I'm thinking maybe Miss Nelson took a sick day and said, I need a break from these kids. They're so naughty and they're not listening to me and they're being disrespectful. I need to take a day off. Maybe that's what happened. I'm not sure. Let's keep reading. Oh boy, this is the unpleasant voice, I think. A woman in an ugly black dress stood before them. I am your new teacher, Miss Viola Swamp. And she rapped the desk with her ruler. Where's Miss Nelson? Asked the kids. Never mind that, snapped Miss Swamp. Open those arithmetic books. Miss Nelson's kids did as they were told. Oh boy, so no Miss Nelson, and this woman has shown up. And she said her name is Miss Viola Swamp. Oh my goodness. Now this is interesting to me, friends, because I know that these were the worst students in the whole school and they didn't listen to Miss Nelson. And now Miss Viola Swamp has come and she doesn't look like she's going to put up with any nonsense, right? And she said, open up those arithmetic books. Arithmetic is another name for math. So she asked them to take out their math books. My goodness, I'm feeling a little bit nervous right now. And I'm wondering, are the students going to be better listeners for Miss Viola Swamp? So far, it looks like it. Let's see if it continues. They could see that Miss Swamp was a real witch. She meant business. Look at this kid. She's pointing at the book on the page. Oh, he doesn't look like he's gonna fool around. Right away, she put them to work. And she loaded them down with homework. Look at all the things she's making them do on the board. And look at all the books they're carrying home. All that homework she gave them. Friends, let's stop for a second. Let's imagine you were a student in Miss Nelson's class. And you fooled around all the time and you had fun with your friends and you weren't very respectful of your teacher. And now she's not there and you have a substitute. And the substitute is not very nice and kind of scary. She's kind of scary, right? Whew. What do you think the kids are thinking right now? If you were a student in this class, what would you be thinking right now? I'm going to think for a second too. You think. Maybe talk to somebody if you have someone next to you. What would you be thinking right now if you were in Miss Nelson's class? Okay. Well, I think I'd be thinking, where's Miss Nelson? Why isn't she here? I wish she were here. This lady's so mean. She's scary. She's not nice. She's giving us so much work. Where's Miss Nelson? That's what I would be thinking. I would probably also be thinking, oh boy, if Miss Nelson was here, I would be so much nicer because this lady is scary. I don't want her. Let's find out what happens. We'll have no story hour today, said Miss Swamp. Keep your mouths shut, said Miss Swamp. Sit perfectly still, said Miss Swamp. And if you misbehave, you'll be sorry, said Miss Swamp. Whew. No story hour. We love story hour. We're having story hour right now. No story hour. Keep your mouth shut. No talking. Sit perfectly still. And if you misbehave, you'll be sorry. What do you think she means? Oh my goodness, maybe she means they're gonna have a detention? Maybe she means they're gonna miss recess? Oh, this lady, look at her. I would not want her to be my teacher. The kids in room 207 had never worked so hard. Days went by. Days went by, and there was no sign of Miss Nelson. The kids missed Miss Nelson. Oh, friends, I thought this was just one day, but the book just told me days went by. Miss Nelson has not come back. Oh boy, well, I'm gonna need to stop and think now, friends. What do I think happened to Miss Nelson? I'm gonna use all the information I know so far. Because in the beginning, I know that the kids were not behaving. They weren't listening to her. They were being disrespectful. And then she wasn't in school the next day. And my first prediction was that she must have taken a sick day because she probably needed a day off from these children. But now she's been gone for days. What could that mean? You know, now I'm wondering, did Miss Nelson quit? Maybe she said, that's it, I'm not working here anymore. These kids don't listen. They're not being nice to me. Oh my goodness, where is she? Or is she actually missing? My goodness, this is getting exciting. Let's find out. And the kids missed her. Why do you think the kids missed Miss Nelson? I know what I think. I think they missed her because she was sweet and kind and nice. And Miss Viola Swamp, scary and tough and kind of mean, right? Ugh, look at their faces. They do not look like happy kids. Maybe we should try to find her, the kids said. Some of them went to the police. So some of the kids are going to the police station because they're convinced that she's actually missing and they don't know where she is. Detective McSmog was assigned to the case. He listened to their story. He scratched his chin. He said, I think Miss Nelson is missing. Detective McSmog would not be much help. What? I wonder why they're thinking that. He said, I think she's missing. And the kids are thinking, he's not going to be much help. Well, I think they think that he's going to look for her. That's what you would do if you went to the police station and said someone was missing. You would hope that the police would help you look for the missing person, right? I think the kids are worried that if all he's saying is, I think she's missing, maybe he's not the smartest detective. Other kids went to Miss Nelson's house. The shades were tightly drawn and no one answered the door. That means, friends, that the shades, that's like the blinds on your window, sometimes they're called, or the curtains, they were closed, so you couldn't see inside the house. In fact, the only person they did see was the wicked Miss Viola Swamp coming up the street. So here's the kids running the other way, because look who's coming. Miss Viola Swamp. Maybe she lives around here too. A lot of times substitutes live nearby the school that they're substituting at. Maybe she lives nearby. If she sees us, she'll give us more homework. They got away just in time. Phew. So they're worried if Miss Viola Swamp sees us, she's going to give us more homework. We better get out of here. It looks like maybe she was just at the grocery store. She's carrying a bag. Maybe something terrible happened to Miss Nelson. Maybe she was gobbled up by a shark, said one of the kids. But that didn't seem likely. Look at this. Sharks. Very unpleasant. So they're imagining now. The kids are thinking, what could have happened to Miss Nelson? So one of them says, maybe she was eaten by a shark. know. If my teacher was missing, I don't know if I'd think she was eaten by a shark. I'm not sure if that's a very, reasonable idea. I guess it's possible, but do they live by an ocean? I don't know. I don't know if that would be my first guess. Maybe Miss Nelson went to Mars, said another kid. But that didn't seem likely either. I agree. Getting eaten by sharks or going to Mars, probably not what happened to Miss Nelson. What do you think would be a more reasonable answer about what happened to Miss Nelson? Stop and think for a minute. What could have happened to her? 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, well, like I said before, think maybe she quit. Maybe she's like, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore. This is too hard. These kids are not listening. Or maybe she took a break, like a vacation, and she said, I need some time off. I need a vacation. Or maybe she's sick. Or I don't know, maybe she had to go take care of someone in her family or something. Those all seem like more reasonable ideas than getting eaten by a shark or going to Mars. I know, exclaimed one know-it-all. Maybe Miss Nelson's car was carried off by a swarm of angry butterflies. But that was the least likely of all. So one of them said, maybe her car was carried away by a bunch of butterflies. I don't think butterflies can pick things up, and especially not a car. The kids in room 207 were very discouraged. It seemed that Miss Nelson was never coming back, and they would be stuck with Miss Viola Swamp forever. They heard footsteps in the hall. Here comes the witch, they whispered. Hello, children, someone said in a sweet voice. Who do you think it is? Someone said, hello, children, in a sweet voice. Who could it be? Do you know? I think it's Miss Nelson. Let's find out. Miss Viola Swamp doesn't have a sweet voice. Let's find out. Look how nice the kids are sitting. It was Miss Nelson. Did you miss me? She asked. We certainly did, cried all the kids. Where were you? That's my little secret, said Miss Nelson. How about a story hour? Oh, yes, cried the kids. Miss Nelson noticed that during story hour, no one was rude or silly. Oh, that's good. What brought about these lovely changes? She asked. That's our little secret, they said. Friends, I think we need to stop and think here. So Miss Nelson finally came back to school after being gone for a very long time, and her students are very excited. They're speaking to her nicely. They're telling her they missed her. They're asking for story hour. And it said during story hour, no one was rude or silly. What brought about this change? Well, I'm going to make a prediction. I think, or I'm going to infer, I think it's because they didn't like Miss Viola Swamp, and they realized that they had a really, really nice teacher, and they weren't being really, really nice to her. I think they realized that they were so happy to have her back, and they don't know what happened to her, but they don't want her to disappear again. I think they're thinking, we better be good so that Miss Nelson stays around. I think I would be thinking that if I were the kids. Back home, Miss Nelson took off her coat and hung it in the closet, right next to an ugly black dress. When it was time for bed, she sang a little song. I'll never tell, she said to herself with a smile. Oh my goodness, friends, did you pick up on that? It said when Miss Nelson got home, she took off her coat and hung it in the closet next to an ugly black dress. Look at what is in Miss Nelson's closet. An ugly black dress, and look, a box that says wig. Oh my goodness. A wig and an ugly black dress. And look what else I see. Some ugly black pointy shoes. Those look familiar to me. Friends, I think Miss Nelson was dressed up as Miss Viola Swamp. Oh my goodness, I did not see this coming. I think she tricked her class. She was wearing a costume. She wore a wig and she wore ugly black shoes and that dress. And on her dresser, I can even see, it looks like a big fake nose. That looks like Miss Viola Swamp's nose. Look at that big nose. That looks like what's on her dresser. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. It was Miss Nelson the whole time. P.S. Detective McSmog is working on a new case. He is now looking for Miss Viola Swamp. Friends, I hope that you enjoyed this story. And I hope that you figured out that Miss Nelson really, remember in the beginning, said something needs to be done. She knew that her class was not listening and that she had to do something. She had to take action. She had to make some changes so that they would be better listeners and more respectful and wouldn't be the worst class in the whole school. So her plan was to dress up in a costume and be a substitute teacher who was not very nice. And her students learned that we need to treat people nice who are nice to us. We need to be respectful, even of people who aren't always nice. We should always be respectful until someone gives us a reason not to be, right? So I think that she taught her kids a lesson here. I think she wanted them to realize, like, what a good thing they had. I'm a great teacher. I'm so nice and kind, and I read you stories, and you guys are just being kind of mean. I think they learned they need to treat people nicely. They needed to treat their teacher nicely. So I wanted to take a second and compare and contrast a little bit because we had two very different teachers in this book, and we've been working on comparing and contrasting. So if I needed to think about Miss Nelson and Miss Viola Swamp, what are some things that I would say that would describe Miss Nelson? Well, she's very kind. She was sweet. She was nice to her students. She read them stories, and she kind of didn't really have any control over the students, right? She let them just kind of run the show. That's why they were misbehaving. Let's think about Miss Viola Swamp. Well, she was kind of scary looking. She was not very nice. She had a scary voice, a deep, scary voice. She did not read them stories. She gave them tons of work to do. And she definitely had control of that class, right? So those are things that were different. Remember, when you compare and contrast, you tell what's the same and what's different, okay? So what's the same about them? Well, they're both teachers. Miss Nelson might have been a teacher and Miss Viola Swamp might have been a substitute teacher, but they were both teachers. Let's see what else. Well, they both taught in the same school, in the same classroom, right? And I will also say, which we didn't know till the end, they're actually the same person, right? It was just Miss Nelson acting like a different person. So don't forget when you're reading any book, boys and girls, you should stop and think. Think about characters in your book. You can also compare and contrast other things. Like we could have compared and contrasted the students. We could talk about the students in the beginning of the story and how the students acted at the end of the story. So when you're reading, always take time to stop and think, what can I compare and contrast? Did I have some characters in here that were the same or different? What can I tell about them? I hope you enjoyed this book and our story, and I'll see you soon, boys and girls. Bye!